Welcome back to the last session in track 1, and over to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeanette. Welcome once again. This is, as Jeanette said, is our final session, supercharging visual workflows in the new reality of content production. Now, if you are looking for design operations, simple steps to getting started with Canva, join track 2. But please, for now, enjoy this presentation from Nina. Ask any questions that you have in the Q&A box, as you have been doing throughout the event. And that just leads me to introduce to you our final fabulous speaker for the event. Welcome to our wonderful Nina Walsh from Amazon Web Services. Over to you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'll jump right in. So hi everyone, I'm Nina Walsh, Head of Visual Computing for Asia Pacific and Japan. Now, visual computing is just a fancy name that means I work with content production and digital creative customers. That includes visual effects, animation studios, advertising agencies, immersive experience customers, games development studios, the list goes on. But I also work with educational providers to help these businesses as they map out their move to the cloud and to train that workforce of the future with the latest advancements in the tools and technology, which of course underpin our industry. So why am I here presenting when I work for a tech giant? Well, like many of us on the call, I've spent the majority of my career in creative operations and media and entertainment. More specifically, visual effects and animation is where I've spent a decade and a half. My career journey is pretty unique, like I'm sure a lot of ours on the call is. I certainly didn't plan it this way. I think that's why it's probably been so fun. It's been very challenging at times, sometimes super scary, but mostly awesome. My motto has always been to work really hard and to say yes to opportunities, especially where I can challenge myself, learn and grow and develop my skills. I think that's helped make me pretty resilient and pretty adaptable. And I'm sure a lot of you on the call today can relate to those two things. So a bit about me. I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Queensland. And overall, my career is made up of a series of mini careers, if you will, starting off as a dairy farmer, of course, moving on to be a fashion model. I then moved down to Melbourne. I was a radio announcer and then a sports broadcaster. Then randomly, my career took me up to Vancouver, where I was working as a television presenter and also a producer. And then before long, I found my longer term home in content production. In that case, it was visual effects, animation and post-production, which in a sec, I'll talk about a little bit more. Like many Aussies living overseas, family duties brought me home to Australia. And fortunately, I was able to continue my career in Sydney at the wonderful Animal Logic before taking the leap over to AWS. Now, Sydney and Vancouver, two cities that are real global hubs for content creation, and both of which taught me a lot about our industry, also taught me a lot about tax credits and government incentives and how important they are for supporting our industries. Along with that goes all of the jobs within our industries and also the communities that are built. And I know that's a big thing for a lot of us on the call today, and why we're in creative operations more broadly is due to that community spirit and the connections that you get to make along the way, and lifelong friends for that matter. Touching on that, in my experience, awesome people seem to gravitate to creative ops. I also love working in the Asia Pacific region. The pace of innovation across our region is so exciting, and the creative ops industry is just growing and growing as a result of the volume of content that's being produced across all the multiple industries in our space. So some of the films I've worked on, humble brag here, lots and lots of Marvel films and some cuties like Peter Rabbit too. But the first film I ever worked on was actually Maze Runner. Hopefully some of you out there have seen it. It's a great film. After that, it was Guardians of the Galaxy. So I got a bit of a baptism of fire into the industry with some really great films. There was lots and lots of others in between before a highlight of mine, which was Okja, which was shot in Korea. The reason I highlight Okja is because it really highlights where communication, creativity, and technology all came together to create something really great. So just to give some context, we had a visual effects team in Vancouver doing all the visual effects. We had some crew on the ground in Korea working and shooting the film. And then we had the director Bong, also in Korea, reviewing the shots that were being made in Vancouver, just to further complicate the process. On top of all of that, there was a lot of data being transferred around the globe, back and forth both ways, which for anybody who deals in data, it's not an easy thing to do. And Director Bong, may I just say, one of the best directors I've ever worked with. He was so great with our crew, came in, painted a mural, signed autographs. It was a great experience. But again, what I learned from working in this industry for over a decade and a half is the crucial role that technology plays in supporting those time-sensitive and secure workflows and facilitating that communication, especially now that we're working in even more global situations. I do think I learned that best by being a customer myself. It's very hard to understand unless you've had that experience on the ground. And that helped me develop the skills so that now I can connect with customers to bring them along for the journey, which it is quite the journey. You know, transforming your business does not happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. So why did I leave the glamour of film and come and join a tech giant, I hear you ask? I joined AWS post-mid-pandemic, depending how you look at it, late 2020, as part of a new specialist team that we formed here, specifically to partner with customers in content creation and production as they navigate the fast-paced and constantly evolving landscape of content production. It's a landscape that's relying more and more on technology to power the operations, while freeing up and enabling the humans to do what they do best, which is, of course, create. Some things machines just can't do as well as us. I was in the middle of a digital transformation at a studio, and I was keen to get a better understanding of how technology is driving change in our industry, and more so how I could help other studios and businesses change their business models and underlying operations to prepare for this new future of work. So I love this slide because it says so many things, but just for those of you out there who aren't fully aware of what cloud computing is, and do not worry, you certainly are not alone. Putting it super simply, the cloud supplies the infrastructure. So where you would have a data center in your building, or you would be getting your compute power from an MSP, the cloud provides that infrastructure. So supports all of your computing capabilities for rendering, for workstations, for storage, and provides that in an easily accessible way so that you're not having to worry about having it in the building with you, providing cooling, paying for real estate. You can just access it as you need it. One of the things I love about our industry is that we work with builders, and typically creative people are builders themselves, and they're always innovating. So it's great for us to be able to work closely with customers along this journey as they're looking to, change their business models as they move forward in time. With that, we work through developing partnerships with customers. We're always working backwards from the customer. So spending time with customers, figuring out what their challenges are, and then bringing those challenges in-house, working with our technical teams to try and come up with solutions for you. The other thing that the cloud provides is that it enables us to pass on cost savings to customers. I think in the 15 years that AWS has been around, we've had over 80 price reductions in our services. And that's something that we take really seriously, is helping you to save costs as often and as much as possible by working closely with you. From a media and entertainment solutions perspective, we align services, solutions, and partner solutions against 5 mission-critical industry solution areas. Those are content production, media supply chain and archive, broadcast, direct-to-consumer and streaming, and data science and analytics. And the cloud can simplify how content creators, rights holders, producers, broadcasters, and distributors use the cloud to build, deploy, and reinvent their workloads across each of these areas, basically making it easy to select the right tools and partner for their workloads to accelerate production launches and see a faster time to value. So thinking about the entire landscape of creative operations, there's a number of challenges that are common across all businesses in this space. Content, well, the increased consumer demand for content, which has happened not just as a result of COVID, but probably been magnified as a result of the pandemic, requires more exclusive and diverse content, which is needed to be produced quicker and quicker than ever. As I said, it has sort of come about, I guess, in an accelerated fashion as a result of the pandemic, but there's no signs of that demand slowing down anytime soon. Reduction in cost, both time actually and overall cost of creating high quality productions means we're having to get creative with our business models. And that's to enable us to do more with less, of course, because client demands are always rising, but they always would like those budgets to fall. The bar is still higher than ever. And as I said, those production budgets are shrinking. Remote and virtual productions. So a globally dispersed remote workforce is now pretty standard. It's difficult to get talent. Conditions have forever changed, and working environments are accelerating those remote workflows and cloud migrations. So as I said, the demand for talent is greater than ever before. So from a recruiting perspective, the company culture is a key focus, but also enabling that user experience for our artists. Everyone tries to keep up. There's a pace of innovation in our industry that seems to be insatiable. We probably don't help that by, raising the bar on our creative wants and needs over time. But yeah, that's a little look at that. So now checking out how cloud computing can help businesses to thrive, or looking at some potential solutions here that you can consider. So flexibility is a big one in regards to working environment. It is a new thing for a lot of us who have never been able to work from home due to strict security measures around content and the data associated with that. I know from my previous organisations, it was very rare that we had anyone work from home, and if we did, they were under very strict guidelines, and it was probably for a small amount of time, just depending on the project. But as I said, flexibility has become a recruitment tool, and the cloud can support you to offer that flexibility while ensuring your operations are still secure, because that's of course paramount. You can access talent in remote locations and still monitor what they're working on while collaborating, which is that key part of the creative process. Innovation, of course, it impacts all areas of the business, and having the freedom to be able to experiment and try out new tools and workflows is a key benefit of the increased agility that you get from leveraging cloud computing. Many of us creators are builders by nature, and so we need to have the freedom to try out new things in order to raise the bar on the creative output that can be achieved overall. As I mentioned, client needs are changing, and we need to be able to deliver on what their expectations are. Cost savings is always front of mind in our industry. It takes no time at all for costs to blow out if you don't have processes for managing and monitoring costs. Something businesses have been doing more and more is moving from a traditional mode of procurement and being more agile when it comes to their purchasing. So moving from a traditional CapEx model to an OPEX model, for example, enables businesses to only pay for what they use. It's called a consumption model. And with the razor thin margins in our industry, it's enabling significant cost savings and flexibility to businesses and their operations. For example, we've got a customer here in Sydney who used to have 3 floors in a building, and all of a sudden 50% of their staff wanted to work from home forever. And so therefore they were able to downsize to 1 floor, and they're even looking at getting rid of the space altogether because they just don't need it. That's a significant cost saving for an owner operated organisation, for any organisation for that matter. But that's just an example of the flexibility that you can look to incorporate if you take another look at those business models. Security. Always the top priority. You need that elasticity to grow and expand when you have a lot of work, and then you need the freedom to be able to contract when you finish a project. Something to take into account when you're onboarding and offboarding short-term contractors is that you can have those security parameters in place to make sure that you're onboarding them, you're giving them only what they need, and then as they're finishing up on the job, heading off to the next one, you can ensure that they're not taking anything with them that they shouldn't be, and they don't have access to anything moving forward. So I love this picture. Many of you probably remember drawing and making collages in preschool or primary school. And I think a lot of us probably had a great teacher who really fostered the creativity from a young age. And that's then probably what led to us being in the creative industry. I know that's the case with me, being creative from a young age. So obviously feature animation, visual effects, visuals in general are much more complicated than the murals that we used to draw. But that environment of creativity and fostering of collaboration, that freedom to express yourself, that's what we want to help customers achieve with cloud technologies. We want to create the ideal working environment for creative people to do what they do best. So what are some of the things we think about when working with teams this way? Well, of course, the ideal creative environment contains all of the tools necessary to create the art. So whether it's a colored pencil in this case, or an animation pipeline with all of the software applications configured for artists to use, creative people need tools to create their art. Artists need to be able to collaborate and seamlessly share ideas and creative outputs with their team. And that's something that we've sort of lost, or we're at risk of losing, by having people dispersed geographically across the globe, is not being able to have that collaboration happening in the same room like we used to. We can still do it, we just have to pivot. And finally, artists need this environment to give them artistic freedom. So the tools or the technology that we use to create everything disappears, and the artist is able to enter the creative flow state. The environment should not hinder the process. It should purely support it moving forward. When we talk about creating this working environment for artists working in animation and visual effects in this instance, we want to ensure that the environment will adapt and scale to accommodate different types of projects and different complexities and different sizes of teams. So everything from a 2D style short film to a 3D feature film with realistic rendered materials and simulated effects. Is that right? Yeah. However, this is easier said than done because when it comes to creating computer-generated animation, visual effects, there are so many moving parts. There are software packages, licenses, plugins, versioning, terabytes of data, high-powered workstations, and all of these need to be set up and configured so that the artist's project data gets passed from one artist to the next, all while the artist maintains that sense of creative freedom. As I mentioned, a lot of studios have been looking to the cloud to handle many of these complicated components of setting up studio infrastructure and making it repeatable and scalable. So some key takeaways from today's session from me. Research. research the various technologies on the market that can better support your business operations. When you have a lean DevOps team, this is the difference between launching in weeks or days, not months or years, to build that video application without needing specialized video developers, or taking advantage of machine learning without having specialized data scientists and developers. Your teams can focus on the big picture of creating and ensuring a great customer experience, not on reinventing the wheel each and every time you need something new. Technology can help to accelerate your business creatively, elastically when you need to expand and contract, and it can give you the option to experiment in new areas where you haven't had the means to do so before. Adapt your financial model to support the needs of your business. As I mentioned earlier, many of us have worked to a traditional CapEx model, and while this may have worked fine in the past, the option is now there to consider moving to an OpEx model where you only pay for what you use, depending on the needs of your business, of course. Creativity and innovation are the complement to one another. When we stop being able to innovate due to costs or feeling restrained, our creative freedom goes out the window, and we're then dictated to by whatever financial constraints or the path of least resistance that we have. You have to challenge that. Shrinking budgets doesn't mean we stop experimenting. We can't, otherwise that whole creative process just dies along with it, which is far too sad. People are at the center of all of this. I touched on this a few times, and empowering the humans to do what only humans can is what drives change and raises the bar on quality in our industry. So to empower people to do their best work, and the user experience needs to be front and center at all times. And that's from a technology perspective. There are many amazing products and services available to help you there. And please reach out if you do want to discuss any of that with me. Last but not least, one thing I haven't talked about today, but it is a must for supercharging your business longer term, is soft skills. They are anything but soft. They are a superpower. In the war for talent that we're in right now, with skyrocketing salaries and the like, don't underestimate the importance of engaging people, creating connections, and inspiring each other. Thank you very much for having me.
What a wonderful little ending that was to a fabulous,
I couldn't help it.
Fabulous presentation. Thanks, Nina. That's great. Look, there are questions. I don't know where to start. I'm going to start right at the beginning of the presentation. So, Nina, it's clear that you are you epitomize embracing change, because you have changed careers quite a few times. But they've all seemed to have that link. Do you have a section of your career that you felt you've grown the most?
I think at the beginning, so going from the country to the big smoke, that wasn't really the big smoke, but it was to me. Yeah. And that was a huge change, you know, breaking away from that, you know, little girl on the farm and realizing that, you know, I'm a strong, intelligent woman and I can get out there and do what I want to do, and not being held back, I suppose, by where I came from. Yeah. And then most recently, going from this amazing creative organization to a tech giant, as I mentioned. It was a huge change for me. It was terrifying. I still have imposter syndrome on a daily basis. But as I mentioned, I absolutely love being able to still work with my customers that are in that space. That keeps my little foot in the door, which gives me that happiness.
Yeah, sure. So you also mentioned your you highlighted one of your, I think, favorite films, Okja, where you highlighted the mixture of communications and creative and technology from, you know, where people are based all around the globe. Obviously, all of that supports and facilitates communication, but what technology supported and facilitated that communication? How did you do that? What solution did you use?
Yeah, so there's multiple factors there. There's obviously your traditional modes of communication, like the old telephone and email. But then, of course, there's your collaboration tools like your Teams, your Slack, your chat functionality. And then from an actual creative workflow perspective, there's your pixel streaming technologies like your Teradici and your Nice DCV, your Parsec, things like that, that you can look to implement in your workflow to really make that process seamless. I think that's one thing artists in the industry will tell you is they cannot stand the spinning wheel of death or waiting for stuff to, render. You want it now. And as soon as you break that sort of flow, it disrupts everything, really.
Yeah. Is that the same for moving huge amounts of data, or is that a different sort of methodology?
Yeah, no. So very similarly, you want to make sure that you've got the data where you need it, when you need it. And that's part of the challenges that businesses face is you don't want to be moving all of your content to have it sit there and have your artists only working on 10 or 20% of what's there. That's just not, the best use of your money, to be honest, paying for that storage. So that's where now we've got various levels of storage that you can access. We've got ways to transfer that data so that you really are only accessing what it is that you need and what the artist needs. And for example, if you've got artists in India working with, artists in Australia working with artists in Berlin, who's working on what and when and how to keep that all organized, you really need to leverage some of these technologies on the market in order to help you do that, because otherwise it can get messy and frustrating waiting for stuff to arrive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all feel the pain of that. So you mentioned 80 price reductions in your presentation. Was this solely through moving to an OPEX model, or are there any other examples that you can share as to how you were able to offer such a volume of price reduction?
So that specifically talks about our services that we offer. So we're always finding ways to decrease those, be it the scale that we operate at, or the various products and services that we offer, where we can look to make things more efficient and cut those costs for customers. Then we will do that every day. We actually pride ourselves on doing that. Not charging customers more.
Absolutely. And it's a win-win situation then, because you're partnering with customers and saving them money and also selling products as well.
Yes, exactly. It is a partnership for us. I think I touched on that in the presentation, but we don't know everything, far from it. And that's where, having relationships with customers that we can go deep on, look at their workflows, figure out what those pain points are, and then work backwards to develop those solutions for them and in partnership with them, to be honest. That is our preferred way of working. And for us, again, it's about, once we've developed something, getting it in the hands of customers to test it out and give us feedback. We love feedback. It's a real feedback culture here, because that's the best way for us to learn and to also give customers what they need.
Absolutely, yeah. Feedback equals growth, really, in lots of different ways. Yeah,
definitely.
So we do have another couple of questions from Ange. With shrinking budgets, how can we make sure that creators and filmmakers are not shortchanged financially in terms of the globalization of the content creation process?
Oh, yeah, that's a
big
good question. It is a big one. No, but it's a good question, Ange. Look, I think part of this global workforce, and I guess areas where you can look to, try to make the most of being able to work remotely, is accessing your various tax credits or incentives in various countries and states, for that matter. In Australia alone, we have 3 or 4 different tax incentives depending on what state you're in, and for different aspects, be it the actual workforce or the the infrastructure that's supporting the production, or both. Similarly, that's the same across other places like in North America, in Montreal, Vancouver. I think it's looking at what it is you need to create, looking at where the talent is available, and then looking at what incentives you can leverage in those locations, and obviously trying to work in the most efficient way possible in order to do that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. So in countries where the internet connection is not fast enough and access is often spotty, how can we then make use of cloud computing?
It's another good question.
Very
another
good
curly
question.
one.
Yeah.
I won't get salesy, but we have over 200 regions and local zones globally. So that enables you to have a lot of accessibility where you are. We're always looking to grow our footprint in various locations. We've just announced some exciting launches in Jakarta and other regions across Asia Pacific. Auckland is another one. So yeah, it is a challenge having the pixel streaming technology in place that uses minimal bandwidth is definitely one thing you can do, but also, as I mentioned, we are always expanding on where we offer our services to support customers all over the globe.
Yeah, it's a common question as well that, you know, has come up throughout the event on supporting various different markets, depending, not just depending on how much people are spending, but the needs. Yeah. So this isn't a question. This is rather a final statement for you, Nina. You shared with us one of the best quotes of the, well, arguably one of the best quotes of the event. Awesome people do absolutely gravitate to creative operations. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, I think I caveated that with I may be biased, but I don't think I am.
No, I don't think you are.
As you know, I've worked in lots of different, I guess, facets of media and entertainment and creative operations more broadly. And that is the biggest or the biggest differentiator, I suppose, is that we have awesome people doing awesome things in our space. So I feel very fortunate to be a part of the industry more broadly.
And Nina, you are one of those awesome people with an awesome presentation. It's been an absolute delight to have you with us. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for closing out the event. So thank you. I've got a few words
Thank you very much, Amanda.
to say. Oh, you're very welcome. And hopefully we can connect afterwards.
Absolutely, we'll do. And you've done a stellar job as well. Fabulous job. Well done.
Thanks, Nina. So, wow. What an event that was. So I promised you at the beginning of the event that we had many fabulous speakers with fascinating presentations, and I'm hoping, I assume we certainly didn't disappoint. I've taken away a lot of information from this event, a lot of good tricks and tips, and a lot of good areas that I'm now going to take back to my team and take back to my company to see how we can integrate that in our current processes. So that really just leaves me to sincerely thank you for attending Creative Operations Asia Pacific 2022, the inaugural event. And before you go, just a reminder that session recordings from today's events are now accessible or will be shortly in the agenda tab. And it's also not too late to catch up with our event sponsors in the exhibition tab also. So be sure to head over and ask your burning questions. Thanks again, everybody who's been involved in this event. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for the organization. Thank you to our event sponsors for making it possible and for making it such a great event. We all look forward to seeing you very soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.